I grew up in a very sheltered household. Both of my parents were pretty successful. Just unhappy. I had a very low self-esteem, and I ended up running away from home when I was very young. And I met a 30-year-old man who asked me if I wanted to go to a party, and I told him yes. At the time, I was still a virgin, so I was innocent, and he took advantage of that innocence. I don't ever feel like I'm going to be the same. I feel marked.
We remove the branding tattoos that are forced on victims of sex trafficking. A lot of these girls that are trafficked, their pimps will brand them to show ownership. It's a sign of ownership. And so they come here and we either lighten and remove them, or we have affiliates where they can go to get them covered with something beautiful.
After their procedure, survivors are invited to leave a handprint on our Freedom Wall, a powerful symbol of new beginnings. This is more than a tree. It is a living testament to survival, strength, and freedom. Each handprint tells a story, not of what was taken, but of what has been reclaimed. Together, they form a canopy of courage, growing, thriving, standing tall in the face of all that tried to break them. Through this journey, one painful truth has become clear. Too many survivors return to unsafe situations, not by choice, but because help isn't accessible. That's why we created MYSTEP, a real-time, location-based resource hub where anyone in crisis can find immediate support.
Women aren't objects, we are humans, and, we deserve better.
Welcome to another episode of Talking with Kevin and Son. This episode is brought to you by RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Through the power of your story, our mission is to uplift the power in your voice, to inspire you to share stories and experiences and perspective using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple, folks. It's helping other people every day. We just say hope. Today, this episode is brought to you by The Borough. That's our sponsor, located at 149 East Lancaster Avenue here in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. I'm telling you, it's 3 floors of just fantastic experience. Food, sports, I would say video game, but it's just a good vibe. And if you are hearing this for the first time, and you happen to stop by, go tell Pete or JT or my son, the executive chef, used to be my co-host on this show, the son, that you heard about this their restaurant, The Borough, at 149 East Lancaster Avenue, from the podcast, Talking with Kevin and Son. Well, we have today's guests. I have 3 dynamic women. This episode we'll talk about something that most of us are a little bit uncomfortable with. You hear, in our politics, the Epstein files and all this other stuff about sex trafficking and whatever. Well, I have 3 experts in this field. Not only will they educate you, they will inform you, direct you, and they will tell you about their purpose. So today, their bios are way too long. I'm not even going to try to go through and try to list everything. So I'm going to start with, we have Shanna Parker here. We have Gina, I'm not even going to mess up your name, but Geraldine Donaher. I'm going to go ahead and start with Shanna. Tell us a little bit about you real quick.
Thanks so much, Kevin. I am a national survivor leader. I work across the nation on the issue. I've contracted with several government agencies and spent some time as a delegate for a few years as well. But my day job is here in Arizona working with juveniles who have experienced sex trafficking. So I get assigned to their cases. I work with excuse me, I work with the
That's
kid
okay.
and the teams to be able to build a new path for them. And that's how I ended up meeting Miss Gina here.
All right. And Gina, let's let the world know a little bit about you. And you're on the West Coast, correct?
Yes, we're both in Arizona.
Okay.
So thank you
Tell
for
us.
my, oh, I was just say thanks so much for having us. My name is Gina Jernukian, but I go by JAE because my last name is too long. I am the founder of Soul Survivor Inc., INK, and what our organization does, and it's also nationwide, is we cover or remove the branding, scars, and tattoos that are left on survivors of sex trafficking.
All right, and I have here my homegirl. She's here on the East Coast with me. I mean, we're outside of Philadelphia. I have Geraldine Donaher. Geraldine, I'll tell everyone how all this ties in together. But Geraldine is the person that said, "Hey, you got to talk to these two women. We got to do something about it." Years ago, I did 6 episodes educating people on sex trafficking. It's now back in the news with our current administration. They're fighting over releasing information. I don't know if that's going to come up in the conversation, whatever, but this is a call to action show today. So, Geraldine, real quick, your bio.
Hi, Kevin. Thanks again for having me. I'm an author, speaker, and educator. I've spent 6 years researching and interviewing professionals who work with sex trafficked minors. And because I taught for over 20 years in the elementary school system, I decided that having a conversation about what happens with young people in manipulation and coercive control of traffickers, perhaps getting a story out there to young people is the best way to teach them what is actually happening during this type of abuse. So I wrote a novel which is coming out in January. It is called Mouth Shut, Head Down, and I'm hoping that it can be used by educators, parents, guardians, and kids themselves by having a conversation about exactly what is happening specifically with Romeo traffickers.
All right, and to my listeners, I know this is holiday time, and it's about the end of 2022, going into the New Year's. But the reason why I'm doing this show is because education is not designed to make you comfortable; it's designed to make you think. And as many of us that may think our children are safe, we live in the suburbs or we're on college campuses somewhere, you're going to be surprised when we get this information. So today we're going to talk about erasing the marks, rebuilding future, and saving the soul. And these three dynamic powerhouse women here are going to basically change your life. So the first question I'm going to ask, and I normally don't have these conversations, it's normally just we just talk and have fun on here. Need to know, Gina, if you can tell us what exactly SSI is. I
Soul,
said it right.
right. It's Soul Survivor Inc. That's what it stands for. That's the name of the nonprofit organization.
All right. And what inspired you to create this?
I was working as a permanent makeup artist and tattoo removal specialist. And I mean, long story short, I start seeing very odd tattoos or the duplicates or they weren't professionally done. It was just something that was a red flag. So I start asking around like, what is this? And someone had told me, oh, I think that's a branding. And I was like, a what? Like I had most people that are listening probably have no idea. And so I really start researching it, found organization, which was the Dream Center, and said, hey, I'm doing this. If you want to send anyone over, I'll do it for free. And aside of a few months, that grew so big, I start recruiting people and it just grew and grew and grew. And then we became an organization because I had no idea how big it was, how many people actually were branded.
All right. Can you give us a number on exactly how big that number is?
Number like of survivors that we've worked with or
Yeah.
like general
No,
thousands.
in general,
Oh,
is it hundreds? Is it tens or thousands or is it millions?
I would say it's definitely hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Branding is a common thing in the world of trafficking, depending on the type of trafficking you're experiencing. If it is street controlled pimp trafficking, then there is a much greater chance that you're going to end up with some type of branding. I would say the kids that I work with, probably at least 50 to 60% of them have received brandings from various traffickers. Some of them have multiple brandings. And so then whenever you're looking at a young adult who maybe started as a kid, then they could have even more brandings at that point. But it is a very common thing, especially in the world of pimp controlled trafficking.
All right, can you either one of you or any of you break down and just for our listeners, I mean, I'm going to assume that everyone is as naive as I was when I first started having these conversations. What exactly is trafficking or sex trafficking, and how can we identify if someone that we care about or love is trafficked?
I'll let you answer that
Yeah,
one.
that's a multiple part question,
It really
but
is.
what trafficking is the exchange of an item of value for a sex act. And that item of value doesn't have to be money. It can be a place to stay, it can be something to eat, it can be substances, drugs, things of that nature. But it's usually done by force, fraud, or coercion. And so whenever you have that exchange of a sex act, coupled with force, fraud, or coercion, then you're meeting the TVPA, which is the Trafficking Persons and Victim Act of 2000. You're meeting those guidelines, which detail through the federal government, through the law, what a victim of trafficking is.
All right. Um,
And then what
you
was
know,
your
you,
second question on there? Because you had a
uh,
two-part question.
I just you mentioned different levels of trafficking. I think you just covered that. The next thing is how can you identify if someone's being trafficked?
So it's different ways because trafficking does happen in so many different ways. You have your pimp controlled, or which is sometimes starts, as Geraldine mentioned, the Romeo boyfriend. Then you also have familial trafficking, where there are family members involved, and that familial trafficking can sometimes be very underground. Every once in a while, you'll see families who are commercially trafficking, which that's more in line with the pimp controlled trafficking. So it happens in various ways. Then you've got different groups, as you mentioned, the political side of things. You have a certain level of trafficking that occurs within political populations. Then you have a slightly different form that can happen within the modeling industry, things of that nature. So trafficking can happen in very different ways. That's why it's important to really, gain a lot of knowledge and not just focus on one type of trafficking, because then you'll miss all of the others.
Gina, this is going to seem like a weird question, especially since we're on air doing this. Why should we even care about being trafficked? If my kids are safe and I live in the suburbs and they're going to good schools and so forth, why should we even care?
Well, first of all, it can happen anywhere, and your child isn't exempt even if they live in a prestigious neighborhood. One of the girls, not one, numerous, but one of the girls that we helped rescue a couple years ago was in a gated community in Calabasas. So, I mean, we should care because it destroys lives. These children, their brains aren't even developed, and they're being so abused that even when they, escape, there's just really, like you said, the brain damage, there's literal brain damage, and it really hurts their future. I mean, Shauna is a rarity, and she is a rock star because she's helping a lot of the youth have a successful future, where I got to tell you, most of them don't. They really don't.
It is really hard.
Yeah, it's very
It's
traumatic. And
it's very hard. There is a lot of, manipulation, and and for a lot of people, trafficking starts as a teenager. And so that's, your formative years where you're really, starting to establish your morals, your principles, who you are as a person, who you're going to connect with, those types of things. And so those are the building blocks of your future relationships, success in the workplace, those things. So that's really torn down while you're being trafficked, among other things that are happening. And so without resources, like we have here in Arizona, it's you really see, women and boys often fall prey to a lot of other things, that we have going on in society because they miss a lot of those building blocks, or sometimes those building blocks are manipulated by the trafficker to get, better access to their uh, boundaries and things of that nature. So it's very damaging, and takes many, many years to build a path to recovery.
And I'm glad you brought up the difference in gender, because I know when I did my earlier episodes on this conversation, most people didn't want to hear it. Only for the simple fact is we you would automatically assume when you hear about this conversation or you watch the movie Taken, it's a lower line of people that are trafficking these people. But through my interviews and earlier interviews, I found out that a lot of well-known people, public figures, were involved in that. I did not know until I did one of my interviews that it was like a delicacy. 8-year-old boys in other countries were highly trafficked and preferred by executives of companies, politicians, and other prominent people that you would be surprised that will be involved in this space. Is economically or by gender or race, is anyone immune to being trafficked?
No, no. Well, let me back that up. The only immunity is knowledge. Knowledge
Okay.
gives you the immunity. Without the knowledge, you're not immune to that situation. If we look at some of the, things that have been in the news recently, one of the victims was 35 years old, and an established woman. And she still ended up falling prey to the situation because she didn't have all the knowledge necessary to be able to protect yourself. You can't protect yourself from something you don't know exists.
Right. All right. And these tattoos are identifying marks of like they branded animals back in the day to show that they had property and so forth. You see the commercials that people are given the signs of, I need help, whatever. Are those legitimate signs? I mean, because how do you know? How does a common person like me know, Gina?
Well, the signs, I don't know. There's so much on social media that is not real. And that's like most people would think of trafficking as a big white van pulling up and pulling someone in. And the truth is, these traffickers are smart. They don't want a missing poster on these girls. They want them to come willingly, whether they're 12 or 35. They want them to come willingly. So they manipulate them to come in. And I lost the question. I got off on something else. I'm so sorry. What did you
No,
ask me?
I'm trying to figure out
Oh, how would you
identify.
know?
Yeah, how would you know? I mean, you said tattoos. I've never
Yes.
even seen a tattoo on someone. I mean, everyone's wearing tattoos. How do you know which
Right.
tattoo is which?
It's hard, and some pimps have their own brand. And I'll give you an example. I think it was like 8 or 9 years ago here in Phoenix. There was a pimp that had numerous girls, and little Mr. Peanut that's on a can. There was a Mr. Peanut on the neck, so that was identifying. But you would have had to have known that. You see 4 or 5 girls with the Mr. Peanut. She is being trafficked. But it's not easy because there are names. You put your husband's or boyfriend's name on you. So the tattooing is tough to see. I mean, tough to know if it's a branding or not. I mean, if it's unprofessional, if it's just odd and doesn't make sense, if someone young is getting these tattoos and again, they're odd and they make zero sense, that's an indicator that it might be a branding. Brandings come in form of scars, knives, burns, carvings in the skin. We just see more tattoos than we do anything else.
I would say some of your more common, because there are some that are a lot more common, especially in the pimp control trafficking, are going to be the words loyalty or royalty. Those can be indicators. Crowns,
Yeah.
money bags, money signs, phrases that indicate money or money exchanges, such as pay me or I get paid, things of that nature. Or whenever you see, sometimes you'll see the name of the trafficker. Usually, the street name is utilized. But one of the other things is once these tattoos or scarring is on this individual, it is a beacon to other traffickers that this individual has been trafficked, therefore they are familiar with what goes on, and it's an easier victim identification for them because they know that she's already been involved, and so you're more likely to be approached by a second pimp if you have those brandings on you, which is one of the reasons why we make sure that we try to cover them or remove them, especially on these kids, because it's a beacon for future traffickers.
Yeah. A lot of words too, like I've seen like yo daddy, things like that, slang, cuss words, death before dishonor. It's things like that that is something, a red flag that you can look at that.
All right. To our listeners, I want to say for one, Gina, you brought up the fact that a white van comes down the street and snatches a kid out of their parents' arms. I used to live at 79th and First, between First and Second in New York Avenue. I actually witnessed that actually happening on a crowded day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That actually happened on the street corner, and you'll be surprised on how many different stories were told as far as what we thought we saw and what we actually saw. That's part of the reason I moved from New York City. But this show is about a call to action. All right. We have two of our guests that are on the West Coast, and then I have a guest on the East Coast. When Geraldine contacted me, we're trying to make a connection, trying to build another network here in Philadelphia on this East Coast. Geraldine, why is it important for us to have this conversation, and why is it important for us to have this connection between Shanna and Gina?
Yeah, so what I love about all of my research was I found amazing people who were trying to make a difference. So I found out about the branding, and then Gina Jernukian's name came up on different articles. And I noticed that she had she founded Soul Survivor Inc. out on the West Coast, but it had become national so easily. So because it happens all over the United States. So I had a really good interview with her, and she's one of the first people who opened up the idea that the more conversations we have about this, like Shanna said, then we can educate people. So Gina now, her app, Step How Live, Gina, is that what it's called?
Live.
No, MYSTEP platform.
Yeah, so anybody in the Philadelphia area who is in need because they are in a crisis for anything, sex trafficking, domestic abuse, if they're hungry, if they need medical help, they can actually go on her app and they can get in real time, the resources and know where they need to go. So I right away said to myself, I need to get back in touch with Kevin to find out if we can have these people come out and talk to us so that we can have everybody in the Philadelphia area know that they have somewhere that they can put their resources, that even though it was started with Gina out in the Arizona area, all of our minors, all of our children, all of our people who didn't know and they were targeted for trafficking or any type of trafficking or anything have a place that they can go and they can trust. So Gina and the people from Covenant House told me that the very first thing that is lost from all of these people is their sense of trust. So we need to make sure they have something that they can go to that have human beings on there that care. And a lot of people tell me, why do you write about so many disturbing and depressing things, Geraldine? And I'm like, if we don't talk about them, they are never going to change. So I like to surround myself with people who actually want to make a change, who are doing things to change. And I just want to really get out there in the Philadelphia area. If you have resources, if you have something that can help us that can go on this app, then we want you to go ahead and do that. So I don't know if Gina can talk a little bit more about how they can get on that app, because it would be life-saving, a life-saving thing.
Yeah, if they're an organization.
I'm laughing. I'm glad you set it up that way, because I'm kind of leading into that. But I want to ask one more question before we ask how we get into it, because you brought up the fact of the MyStep platform. I want to know how it works and how it saves lives. And then I'm going to ask you to connect the dots of how we can get in touch with you, what resources that you are available, and so forth. So, but let me back up the question. MyStep platform, how does it work and how does it save lives? Gina or Shanna?
Well, so I'll tell you, with working with so many survivors over the years, one of the common things that we were finding is that when they had a moment of clarity or they were able to leave or escape, they didn't know where to go and they end up right back to their situation. So with a few survivors, this was a few years ago when we started, it was like, let's create something where it's real time. We'll know if they're open, where they're located, how many beds are available within the area that you want. So if you're in Philadelphia, and you want to stay in that area, then it's going to automatically pull your location up from the phone. Or you can put in a zip code. Sometimes victims, let's say they're in Phoenix, they don't want to stay in Phoenix. They want to go to Florida. They can type in that address and we can get them not we, but the transportation, anything they need is going to be on that site. If it's not there, we're just building it. We have about 4,000 resources right now, and we're looking at getting at least 10,000 by the end of this month, but hundreds of thousands in the next few months. But that's how it would work. They would go on and see what they need, whether it's food, shower, shelter, a phone. Maybe they have a baby, maybe they're on drugs. It was inspired by survivors of sex trafficking, but it's not just for trafficking victims. And then as far as organizations, if you're an organization that offers a service, they go on to mystep.live and then they can register. And after the vetting is done, then we'll put them live on the site. So we do vet every single organization, make sure they're legit before we let it go live.
All right. And if you're an individual that's being trafficked that wants salvation, emotional support, psychological support, how did they get in touch with you, Gina or Shanna?
So, well, for me, it would be mystep.live. That's the best resource they can get. They can also go to soulsurvivor.ink, and that is our website. And we do have something they can fill out to get a hold of us. But as far as like help, we don't do that part of it. That's actually what Shauna does.
Yeah, and to get a hold of me, they would reach me through my email, which is going to be Shanna, SHANNA, at angelsgotowork.com. So Shanna at angelsgotowork.com. Angels Go to Work is my organization that I have.
All right. And Geraldine, we're trying to connect the dots between East Coast and West Coast. So definitely there's going to be some questions of how people can get involved. How do they reach you?
Okay, you can reach me at GeraldineDonaher.com. It's just my first and last name, which is GeraldineDonaher. My book is on my website, and a way to contact me is also on there on the contact page. I've actually been going out and talked to different groups on what we can do to help our children protect themselves from coercive control by actually identifying with them the importance of autonomy and agency. So I've taken my 20 years of experience in elementary school classrooms to show how autonomy and agency is often just skipped over. Nobody really knows what it is. However, it is all of our God-given right. And if we actually switch up our teaching, our parenting, our guardianship skills with children, identifying what their autonomy is and how they can work their agency or make a difference in their world, it actually will empower them to identify coercive control, manipulation, and how to get out of a bad situation without thinking that they don't have that right. So a lot of times the people think that they've gotten rid of that right or they don't have it. So you can definitely reach out to me. I've already, even though my book's not coming out until January 28th, I've actually started giving talks to moms groups, and I'm hoping to get into some of the classrooms. I have an educational consultant read my whole novel, and she has approved it for YA, which is young adults, which would be 13-year-olds and up. I would love to get in with a group of kids and actually have them read the book and then have the discussions, which are at the end of the book. I understand parents, grandparents, teachers would like to read it first. They can contact me and I can get a copy of them, or it's also going to be available in Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. You can pre-order them. So I'm just hoping to get the conversation started so that one of the top things that all the professionals I interviewed said was that a lot of times these kids, all minors, are going to be targeted and then trapped because they have no idea what is happening to them. So as a storyteller, I wanted to put it in story form, and then they can relate to it without seeing all of the horrible aspects of sex trafficking, but they can see what that trafficker is saying, how he's saying it, and what he's doing to get control.
All right, I'm going to. We got lost a little bit in the promotional aspect. I'm going to tie it back in, just in case someone here on the East Coast wants to either start a connection directly with Gina or Shanna, and try to create a form, another link to this chain. If someone wanted to become part of this on the East Coast, be specific. How do they get in touch with you? Not the book. We'll promote the book later on. Is there a link or somewhere they can get in touch with you directly? Geraldine.
For me, would just be GeraldineDonaher.com.
All right, that's where I wanted to go with that. Now to my panel. All right, I got to be honest with you. You know, we've gone through with our government and different administrations with the Epstein files. It's taken, I don't know how many years for this conversation to be a issue. We've gone through numerous of trials with celebrity going on trial, being convicted and being released, or whatever the case may be. Are we wasting our time having this conversation, or can we honestly make a impact on this? Because when you get someone that's convicted of a crime that is being pardoned for the same crime, I'm starting to realize that the law only applies to people that can't afford to break the law.
Yeah, we are not wasting time at all. The lack of knowledge about this issue is astounding. And that is why this issue has been able to fester and grow and be in so many spaces, because we don't have the knowledge. Like I said earlier, you can't protect yourself from something you don't even know exists. And so now we're talking about the fact that it exists. Now, whether people are getting appropriately prosecuted or not, that's a whole different story, right? And that's a whole different issue. But the fact that we are starting to have these conversations, we are starting to bring to attention the fact that this issue does exist and has always existed. Since we have been on this planet, this issue has existed. Now, what's different today is this is the first time we've ever been able to fight back against it. I personally think that women's rights had a lot to do with that. Because we weren't ever able to stand up and say, we don't want to participate in this. We don't think it's cool. It's not helping us. Matter of fact, it's tearing us down. We don't want our children involved in this. We haven't been able to stand up and say that. But now that we can stand up and say things, that's what we're saying very loudly, is that this was never our idea. You're not helping anyone through college. You're not assisting in any way, shape, form, or fashion, except for the deprivation of women and children. And so, yes, it is very important that we continue to talk about this so that the education grows.
All right. Gina, I want you to speak to mom, dad, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, anyone that is the primary caregiver of a child. Explain to them what they should be concerned about, what they should see, warning signs or red flags in the home with a child, be it a juvenile or a young teen or an adult. Paint me a picture, because I know storytelling is real powerful, but I need a picture, because a lot of times mom and dad are way too busy to understand the child's needs. A child spends the majority of the time looking on social media, and we don't cover that because we don't want arguments. Talk to the parents for me, Gina.
Well, social media, number one, I mean, it wasn't like that even 10 years ago. Social media glorifies dancers, strippers, how they make money. And that's awful there. And I'll tell you, it's like you leave your child in the bedroom on social media and you're in the kitchen cooking dinner. You may as well just open their bedroom door, I mean, their window, and let people in, because that's what social media really is. It's a window into this child's room, into their soul, into everything. But I would look for being distant, staying in their bedroom more, having nice things, having nice purses, like that. I know you can add to that.
Yeah,
Nail?
I would say if they're showing up with their nails
Yep.
done and you did not give them the money
Hair
to do that,
extensions, just
right?
yeah.
All of those different things. Anytime they're showing up with new things or developing a new attitude, listening to new music that they've not listened to before. I mean, they've completely changed genres, hanging around with friends that they never, and being secretive about those friends when it doesn't make any sense to be secretive. So a lot of those different things, but Gina is so correct. Whenever they are on social media and you're not right there with them, it creates that distance that traffickers are looking for. They're also looking for small statements like, my mom just doesn't understand me. Well, he will weevil into that situation and he will become the person that understands
And
her.
they are patient. They will
Yes.
take time to gain trust.
Months and months.
So, where do you turn to? I mean, can you avoid being trafficked in schools, church, on jobs, relatives? Is there any place that's safe from being trafficked?
I don't think there's any place safe, but like Shauna said, the more you know, you'll be aware, like, oh, I heard that before. I heard that line, or, I seen that or read that. And it'll raise, their eyebrow to like, this might not be good. But there's nowhere safe. I don't think there's anyone that I've ever worked with. I've worked with 100 survivors that have not been trafficked through a church, by a cop, but it's there, you're not safe anywhere unless you know what you're looking for.
Right.
I speak across the country and around the world, and one of the things I am always, pressed to say in my speeches is that where there are humans, there is human trafficking.
Yeah.
Period. Where there are humans, there is human trafficking.
And it's not exclusive to any particular gender or race. Am I correct?
It's not exclusive. It's absolutely more predominant with females, but males are not excluded from this situation whatsoever. Socioeconomic background, race, it is more predominant in African American populations and persons of color, but it is not exclusive to those populations. Where
And,
there
and
are,
I
there is
Go
human
ahead.
trafficking.
And I was actually surprised when I found out that 8 to 10-year-old Black males were what it was explained to me as a delicacy when it comes to older executives desiring that type of. It was explained to me almost like it was on the menu someplace, and they were traveling to different parts of the world just to be with little boys. And I was actually surprised. But the removal of the tattoos, uh, once you guys are getting involved, why is that so important?
Well, it's a part of their history that they have to look at every single day. And when you think of a branding, often people think that these girls are tied down and branded, and it's really not the case. They're manipulated and they almost want it. Some of the girls have told me the lengths they went to get this. It was like a trophy or a badge of honor. It is until afterwards they're like, oh my gosh, this is a branding. And they have to see it every single day. So it's really great that we can remove it, lighten it, cover it up, and they can choose what they want. And it's their own choosing. So yeah, I mean, it's a trigger to have to see it every day.
And not just see it, but as we know, a lot of people appreciate tattoo art. And so you are frequently asked by
Yeah.
strangers and, people that you know and love, what's up with that tattoo? Where did that come from? What does that signify? And so having to either constantly lie about where that tattoo came from or constantly report where that tattoo came from, just, when you're being trafficked, you end up dissociating. Dissociation is a protector. It kind of protects your brain a little bit. But whenever you're retelling a situation or restating something from that situation, you don't get the advantage of dissociation. You have to really remember and relive that. And so each time that you're asked, where'd that come from? What does that mean? You're reliving that situation. And so you could, have just a small interaction where someone on the bus is like, oh, that's a crown tattoo. Why do you have that? Well, it could ruin your whole week. For the rest of the week, you're worried about who else is, seeing my tattoo, who else is, and I wonder if they already know where this comes from. And so there's a whole lot that goes behind, still having that tattoo on your body. And so being able to get that covered, removed, not only takes care of you in those silent moments whenever you're looking at yourself, but also out in society. It removes some of that anxiety that you experience while wearing those tattoos or scars, that someone's going to ask or someone's going to already know, what's going on in your situation. So it really does improve the mental health of the individual to have the service that Gina is able to provide.
And I'm gonna say this, and I speak for many people that may think like me, may not look like me, or may look like me. I'm going to thank all three of you for coming on and sharing this story. I am going to share something with both Gina and Shannon and Geraldine. I'm not excluding you, but if you can relate to this. When I did my 6 episodes, one of the young ladies that I happened to have on, she had been a survivor of being trafficked, but she was currently working at a gentleman's club in order for an income. And the feedback that I got was, one, she deserved when she told her story about going back because she didn't understand what it felt like to be free after, from 8 years old all the way to 23 years of age at being trafficked, and her parents' profit put her into that situation as a child. But the public itself, and I will tell you, from living as a Black man in this world, the public perception of what someone goes through, we're not always as sensitive. So what I would like for either one of you got three to do is explain to individuals that happen to be trying to work themselves back into what we consider a normal life that can be, like how we should be able to accept them because of what they went through. Any advice or what conversation we should have with just the general public?
Shauna's lived it, so it's endless. You could be on here 10 hours talking to Shauna.
Well, you got 20 minutes, Shauna.
What I say to the youth that I work with, trafficking is not who you are, it's what happened to you. Mm-hmm. And you are not at fault that a lot of the information you were provided was wrong, backwards, used to manipulate you, used to highlight your vulnerabilities. That is not your fault. It is not your fault that you ran into someone who has malevolence in them. That is not your fault. But the great thing is we have resources now. And so you're not alone. You're not alone. We have resources across the country that are now able to understand this because we have spread the knowledge. And so now they're able to help pull us out of these situations, not only physically, but mentally, because physically is fairly, easy sometimes to pull out, but mentally pulling out from the situation is a whole different story because we get afraid of what it's going to look like on the other side and what kind of success I'm going to be able to achieve on the other side. And then once I get over there, will that success be extinguished if someone finds out about my past? And so then that prevents you from sometimes even going for the success. All of these fears. Well, these are fears that are understood now. And so we are able to work through those fears. And we've got teams of individuals like myself who have survived it personally. And so we know exactly what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and we can relate on those issues. And because we've been able to climb over that mountain and get to the other side, we can help you climb over that mountain and get to the other side because there is another side and it's worth getting to.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to ask this question, and hopefully I preface it correctly. I'm going to ask each individual, starting with Geraldine, this question. I want you to speak directly to a young lady that's hearing this, that's currently being trafficked right now, to let her know that there is help. And by listening to this interview right now, it is now time to help yourself. Um, Give her, Geraldine, or him, or however they identify themselves, a conversation they should be having with herself to reach out to this organization to get help. Geraldine.
There are people who really care for you as an individual, and they want to see you survive and then thrive. And whoever has been talking to you up to this moment, you're not too sure, you may be confused, but there are people there who really have your best interest at heart. And even if it's just reaching out to Gina and Shanna at Soul Survivor Inc., then you're going to go and you're going to send them an email and just say, I need help. I want to trust somebody, because there are people out there that you can help, that will help you.
I'm going to ask you the same question. You're speaking to a young teenage boy that is being trafficked, and he's amongst many, both boys and little girls. I want you to give him or her the strength. Talk to them directly. And Shanna, I'm going to ask you last because I want you to share your story and let them know that they're not the only ones there. So Gina, speak to them.
Well, you're not alone, and it is not your fault. That is the main thing. They think it's their fault because maybe they willingly did something or willingly went to the party, and then they end up in this trap and they blame themselves. And I just want you to know it is not your fault. There's some smart traffickers, smart pimps, smart people out there that know how to manipulate you, and that's exactly what they did. And we want to help you get out and become successful in life and feel good about yourself again.
All right. Shanna, we know that branding is a tool for ownership and trauma, right? You have personally lived through this experience, and now you're on the other side where you're helping. My grandfather always said, when you get to a place in life that you can help someone else out, it's your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one. I need you to reach one right now and teach millions. Please tell us your story.
Absolutely. I was 13 years old when I met my trafficker. Vulnerable age, come from a home of abuse. And so a lot of the kids I work with, they also come from those situations. So I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter what your yesterday looked like, tomorrow can be different. For me, my situation went through all of my teenage years. We didn't have the resources back then. We also didn't have the belief, that these were victims. I was arrested at 14 years old working in a strip club, and somehow I was the criminal in a place that was owned by adults, filled with adults, ran by the adults. The 14-year-old was the criminal. I had a child with my trafficker. I got pregnant at 14 and had the baby just after I turned 15. No one in the medical field recognized, and I was open and honest about my situation. No one in the medical field recognized that I was the victim in this situation. Again, I was recognized as the criminal or the delinquent in the situation, which allowed it to persist. Because whenever you put all the pressure on the victim isn't able to really speak out, and they learn not to speak out, which is what I learned. And it went on for many years. My situation ended when my trafficker, who was a very brutal trafficker, beat a baby out of me. I had gotten pregnant against the rules, and he murdered my unborn baby. And then he ended up murdering one of the young women that was being trafficked with me and her unborn baby. And so I know how bad it can get in these situations. But what I also know is it's different now. It's different now, and we have the resources to help. We have the resources to turn everything around. And like Gina said, make life different for you now. People understand, they believe. They will believe you whenever you tell them what's going on, even though it may sound outrageous. They will believe you because people are starting to understand and make a difference. You just got to reach out. You just got to reach out, and build the information for yourself. Pull up the STEP app, find information in your area. If you don't have that available, you can reach out to your local 211, and I bet you they will also have some information available. But the information is out there. You just got to reach out for it.
I thank you for sharing your story. I hope I didn't trigger any bad experience, but I do know that stories are powerful. All right.
Yes.
None of us have original stories. The only thing that makes our stories original is the cast of characters in the location and how we respond to our actions with the story and how it ends. And so I want to thank the three of you guys for coming on to the show and having this uncomfortable conversation because, again, education is not designed to make you comfortable. And I know this conversation did not make anyone comfortable, but denying it or ignoring it is just as bad as being part of it. Life rewards action, people. I'll repeat that again. Life rewards action. And we're trying to connect or make a connection between the West Coast to the East Coast. So there are resources out there to help these young people, no matter what gender, no matter what race, belief, or how they identify themselves. This show was set up to help. And I'm talking to my listeners. I'm talking to my sponsors. I say all the time, don't like, comment, or follow me if you're not a person of high call to action. My friends and family, they don't drive by an accident, they stop and help. And this story during the holiday times, I'm asking you to help. These three people put themselves out there in front of 10,000 people today. And we're asking you to help. Get involved. Shannon, how do they get in touch with your organization?
So you can reach me through my email right now. My website is under construction right now. The website is angelsgotowork.com. It should be up in the next week or re-up. We're under construction. My email is Shanna, SHANNA, at angelsgotowork.com, ANGELS. Go-to-work.com. I did also want to say when we're talking about also helping service providers understand and be able to identify, I have written my story in book form. The first book is And He Called Me Angel. I wrote it under a pen name because there were death threats on my life. And so it's written under my street name, Angel Myers. Myers was the last name of one of my foster parents. And the second book is also out, Silencing an Angel. I'm in the process about to publish the third book, Angel's Destruction, because it was just a very long story, too much to put in one book. But if service providers want to know, or any of your listeners want to know what these children experience, then my first book, And He Called Me Angel, is a very good book to read to understand that experience. It is also utilized in our detention center here. They have it part of the library, and it also has caused a lot of kids to disclose that they've been trafficked after reading that story. The second book, Silencing an Angel, also written under Angel Myers, both available on Amazon. The first one's available on Barnes & Noble, but the second one starts with a death penalty case and ends with a prison escape. So lots of crazy things go on in the world of trafficking.
All right. And I'm going to ask a question before I go to Gina, because my listeners are going to ask me, the individual that hurt you, your trafficker, did he pay for his crimes?
Are you talking to me or Gina?
No, Shauna.
Okay, you said Gina.
I'm sorry.
My trafficker is one of the few that received the death penalty. He received the death penalty plus 500 years.
All right. Gina, how do we get in touch with you? And if you have a book, it's a good time to go ahead and talk about your book.
Oh, I don't have a book.
You should.
I don't have a book. Maybe one day.
You should.
You can reach me at 480-681-7725. That is our number that anyone can call. Our website is Soul, SOUL, Survivor, SURVIVOR.INK. So it's soulsurvivor.ink and then mystep.live. MYSTEP.LIVE if you need help or you're a resource that wants to have some visibility to your organization and get people to go to your place and they need help. And people out there need to know what's available.
All
So
right.
those are the three ways you can get a hold of me.
All right. Now, listeners are paying attention. Geraldine, you on the East Coast. How do people get in touch with you? And I'll give you 30 seconds to talk about your book.
GeraldineDonaher.com. And my book is YA, which is young adult appropriate for 13 plus years of age to read so that kids can get an inside look at what coercive control looks like among sex traffickers. It's about two girls and how the one watches as her best friend gets drawn into a very dangerous relationship. I did have a survivor read it for me, and she had said she wished she had known all of the red flags that one of my characters actually sees and the protagonist identifies. And this goes back to what Gina and Shanna was saying, that if we spend the time telling teenagers and minors what to look for, they have a better chance of getting out of a bad situation, or at least perhaps noticing that they're in one sooner than later so that they can go get help. So GeraldineDonaher.com. My book comes out in January, but you can pre-order it now.
All right. I do have to do some business. I want to thank my sponsors, The Borough, located at 149 East Lancaster Avenue in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. There's 3 floors of good food, good drinks, good vibes. Stop by and say hello to my friends, JT, Keith, or my son, the executive chef, Theo McLemore. I want to thank you guys for riding and dying with me, no matter what the topic is. Before we end, I want to ask Gina and Shanna one more question. What do you want, Gina? What do you want the listeners to take away from the show?
That sex trafficking is real. It can happen anywhere and to anyone, and there is help. If you know of someone, a friend, don't stay silent because you don't want to narc or telling someone. If you see something, say something, and then just be aware. The more educated you are, the less chance you have of being hurt and being abused. But there is help if you are, no matter at what stage and what age and where you're at.
And I absolutely second what Gina said. The help is out there. But if you're an individual and you're trying to figure out how can I help, what can I do? Sometimes donations are the best way to help. Giving donations to organizations like Gina's, who supply these tattoo coverings and removals. And then also, reaching out to local organizations to see what skill set you have that might be beneficial to that agency. Maybe you don't have the ability to go tackle a trafficker on the side of the road and, pull a police move, but maybe you're a heck of a bookkeeper or accountant and you can really help an agency, stay afloat with some of the skills that you have. So sometimes the things that you don't think about can be very helpful to the agencies who are out there, boots on the ground, doing the work. So just wanted to open that up. There's many ways to help.
All right. I just want to thank the 3 of you. 10,000 different ways. I don't know how many times I can do it. Probably do it a million ways. You give me another 20 minutes, but I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I want to direct this to my listeners, the people that follow and subscribe and comment. Today's conversation reminds us that healing is just not only physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, and deeply personal, as my 3 guests have shared with you. The work that they do of removing the brand does more than just erasing the ink. It restores their identity and it returns their dignity. This show and the stories that we have just told is all about breaking the silence, educating a community, educating one person at a time, and doing something that will prevent harm and corrupting a young life or an older life. Together, these 3 individuals and their advocacy, their compassion, and their purpose can transfer lives for generations and break the cycle of trauma. My grandfather always said, when you get to a point in life that you can help someone else out, he said it's your duty to do so. And I want to remind you what our purpose is hope, helping other people every single day. He said, reach one, teach one. This is Kevin McLemore. I'm your show host. And with that said, we'll fade to black and we're out. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.